Hey everyone, this is Larry with Delta Tactical Training Group. Have you ever experienced a failure to fire? Well, I have. Happened to me last week with my AR-15. I was out on the range and I attempted to shoot and I was just getting a click each time I'd pull the trigger. No bang, which is frustrating to say the least. So after inspecting some of the spent breaths, I was in fact finding that the primer was, or the firing pin was striking the primer, but not adequately. So I was ending up with light primer strikes. So did some troubleshooting, couldn't find anything mechanical, anything noticeable. And so I borrowed another rifle, set mine aside. And when I got home, I looked at it again and determined that more likely than not, the problem is carbon buildup and the fact that I had not cleaned my rifle properly, which I'm embarrassed to admit, but that's the case. So I pulled the bolt carrier group and broke it apart. And I'm going to do that for you right now. I don't know if you all know how to disassemble a bolt carrier group, but this is a bolt carrier group, just FYI. Right here, this part is your bolt. So how you break this down is you start with this little firing pin retention pin. It's basically just this little tiny cotter pin. You see that? So once you yank that, you're able to drop the firing pin. That's a firing pin. Then you move up to this little key right here. This little mod key. You twist it so it's able to clear that gas key and it comes right out. Now you're able to pull the bolt out of the bolt carrier group. So that's a bolt. There's some little parts and components of this bolt that I'm not going to get into today, but if you're running an AR, you need to familiar yourself with the entire system to include this bolt. Again, that's the bolt. That's the bolt carrier group, okay? So I cleaned it the best I could and I wasn't quite satisfied. So I went online and I found this slick little tool and it was delivered to me yesterday. It's called the Otis 3-in-1 and it allows you to scrape carbon from the bolt carrier and the firing pin. And I must say, as basic as this is in design, whoever designed and engineered it is ingenious. So they obviously knew what they were doing because this thing is slick. It works really well. I'm going to start with the firing pin. If you look right here at this little hole, it's milled in a way that you've got these two little sharp, distinct edges right there. So you drop that firing pin in and you take it and firmly apply pressure and you turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't really matter. But it allows you to scrape carbon from a part of that firing pin that really tends to accumulate carbon buildup. And after I turned it several times, you could actually feel that carbon breaking loose when you're scraping it. It looked pretty darn clean. So I wiped that down and moved on to my next part. And that was the bolt carrier. So with that, you look at the end of this little Otis tool. And once again, you've got those sharp little edges. I mean, it looks like a little quasi drill bit actually, or a lathe blade. So down in the bottom of this bolt carrier, I think you can see down there, all the way down, you could see the metal is silver. Can you see that, you guys? All the way down. Well, before I cleaned it, it was black. It was bad. And so that has to be free of carbon, relatively free of carbon for your system to operate properly. So with the tool, the Otis tool, you drop that end down into the front of the bolt. You make sure that it sits flush on top of that little round circle, that little ledge that I showed you, and you just proceed to scrape. You turn it, you hold it firmly, and you can feel it scraping carbon. So I went through it several times and got the bulk of that carbon removed. But even that being said, you take a clean swab and you run it down there along that edge, don't be surprised when it comes back like that. That is not acceptable. In the Marine Corps, during a rifle inspection, if they were to swab that part and come up with that much carbon, you would have your ass handed to you. So I've got some more work to do, but I mean, I'm a far cry ahead of where I was. So I covered the cleaning of the bolt carrier. I covered the cleaning of the bolt. I covered the cleaning of the firing pin. Not the entire cleaning. All I'm focusing on today is what this little Otis 3-in-1 tool will allow you to clean. You have to really focus on working and cleaning the rest of these components to where you don't have to worry about failures to fire. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you find this video to be informative and hopefully educational. And I would love to hear back from you if you've experienced a failure to fire, either from your AR or a handgun. Hit us up on our social media, Instagram or Facebook, please, Delta Tactical Training Group, and share your experiences with us so we can all learn from them. Have a great day, guys. Thanks again, and train for the moment.